I'm David Thule with Geolumina. Today I wanted to give you an introduction to how to navigate and use the sliders within the NVZN AI system. This sliders tab is what allows us to manipulate data. So again, we can zoom in and out in the overall view by using the scroll wheel, and that will give us kind of some better perspective on what's going on. So the Z-scale slider allows us to essentially explode and condense the z-axis of the system. So if I right click and drag, that is a rotate command. And so if I expand out the z-scale, you can see things spread farther apart. If I bring it together, things get closer together. And the z-scale is delimited by the AI tag. So everything that gets assigned an AI tag gets assigned to a planar slot within the NVZN viewer. So it's a way to kind of add some organization and decrease some visual clutter. Now, the same thing works on the X and the Y scale. So if we start looking at the system, and this one is pretty well defined, but when we start, it's a little bit more condensed. So the default view looks something like this, where the scale is not expanded, and we can come in here and we can start to get some more separation. And so, there might be reasons that we want to do the scales X and Y independently, but a lot of times we want to explode both of them outwards so that we can explore the clusters within a cluster. And a good way to demonstrate this is with the core images. So if you have something highlighted in here, the opacity slider will take down the brightness of everything else in the viewer, so there's less visual clutter. So even if I zoom out, I can get a sense of what's going on, and you'll see now if I condense the X and Y scale, there are, we might say that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 main clusters of core photos, and that's pretty reasonable. It's very helpful. If we hover over, we can get a sense of what they are. These are kind of like core box shots. These are horizontal core boxes. These ones are actually heavily oil stained core box photos. The ones down here, these have a 6-column layout where it's all together. This other one has 2 3-column layouts with a scale bar in the center. This one has just a 3-column layout on the right-hand side. So we're already getting a sense of maybe vintage and source and where all the photos came from. But if we expand those scales out, we'll actually see that there's, somewhat more texture to the groupings and the clusters inside of here. And those manifest themselves in rocks that are actually visually similar. So in this case, this cluster up here is all from the 10 Sleep formation. It's Pennsylvanian in age, it's heavily oil stained, and it has a very diagnostic texture that the computer vision is actually picking up on and putting them together. So it's a really powerful tool to be able to expand the X and Y scale and visually investigate the subclusters within any one of the AI tags. And again, we can do that, in a number of different number of different groups. So for instance, we might choose the contour maps, and we'll see that if we turn the opacity down on everything else, there are a number of clusters and subclusters in here that are, groups of visually similar images. So in this case, all of these have the same border, and they're, plotting next to each other. So, maybe it's easy for me to find one of these maps, and then I can just really quickly scroll through and see everything else. Another approach I might take is if I choose Shift and I drag a box over these, they'll be highlighted purple. I can pin that selection, and then I can turn off the contour map tag. And if I click on this little chevron arrow on the top left corner, it's going to bring me a side panel where I can see all of those images. So actually I can see everything that's selected in one system here. And that's a really valuable way to kind of evaluate what I have without having to necessarily hover over every one. So that's kind of a feature. So if I have something selected, I can explore them over here. If I have nothing selected and I ask it to show images, it won't. If I have just a single one highlighted, it will show that image. So I have two ways to select and highlight and view. So this is kind of getting started with the sliders pane. Join me for the next edition of this video, and I'll show you how to add and subtract tags from the system.